really hoping that this whole delving deeper into the mind of Kokushibo is going to have him kind of like get like a fire response and end up regenerating and evolve, because here we're finding out more of the origins. We're finding out the depths of how he felt about his brother, what exactly was the issue between them, and really I can't even say issue between them. Issue on one side, issue entirely on Kokushibo, and not really on Yorichi. Yorichi seemed just like all around saddened, and not just like, man, it sucks I gotta do this, like deeply to his core, like destroying himself over the fact he had to fight his brother. So he's talking about the whole fact that the people who don't feel jealous towards each other or anybody else have never kind of been around somebody like Yorichi, who was just all around favored by the gods. And he says he just burned so brightly, and he was just so talented and amazing at things. It was hard for him not to. They were born as twins, but Yorichi was born with the Demon Slayer mark on his body. He was actually given that from birth, and their father was just gonna kill him because he didn't know what it was. Obviously, people back then were a lot less risky when it came to stuff like that. Probably a lot more vicious, and it was only because their mother, was freaking out about it. Obviously she's not gonna want one of her kids to get killed. They're like, okay, what we're gonna do is at 10, we're gonna send him to go be a monk instead of being a samurai. And for years, he pretty much just like lived as almost like I want to say like a throwaway couch. Someone's just like, yeah, we're gonna get rid of that eventually. Unfortunate, because here he is. You see Kokushibo talking about how like he kind of found his brother to be a bit pitiful, because every time he ever saw his mom, he was like glued to her side, and he just didn't leave her alone at that point. He always like stayed close. He didn't even talk until he was 7. He just always kept quiet and just never really smiled. Seemed very emotionless. But because he knew that his father would find out if he ever gave Yorichi some of his things, he made him a wooden flute and handed that to him, as a gift. And he just kind of always kept that with him. And it wasn't until one day while he was practicing swordsmanship that Kokushibo heard his brother talk for the first time. He had the first time he really uttered anything, and he asked him about how he was going, his dream of becoming the strongest samurai in the land. And Kokushibo was so just completely like caught off guard. He dropped the sword, and he didn't really know like how exactly he was going to like how he was going to respond, because for 7 years he didn't hear his brother say anything, and it was just like that sudden movement that really just kind of like messed up his head for a moment. But not only that, he also smiled. He was pretty happy about it, and then he said like he also wanted to be a samurai. So you had that kind of like act of having interest in not only his brother but also the career he's going into. I don't want to say career, profession, title, class, I think rather would, I don't know, probably the better one. And one day while he was practicing his swordsmanship, one of the guys that worked for their father was like, okay, yeah, I'll show you a little bit about the sword. And immediately, like, he knew just what to do. And it's explained, but like the first time that, this match started, he just kind of like bull rushed the guy, got 4 strikes on him, and just tipped him right over. And no matter what happened, no matter how many times that Kokushibo fought this guy, he never got 1 point on him. And yet, the first time that his brother ever went against this guy, he got four strikes in like, almost instantly. But none of the attacks ended up like damaging the guy's bones. He suffered no serious injuries. He just got these like swollen welts. That just kind of like, obviously I don't imagine they're painful, but no broken bones is better than broken bones. And he's like trying to like figure out stuff about his brother, because he wants to know like how he did that. He's trying to get information on him because he wants to improve his own skills. But his brother's like, I don't want to be a samurai anymore, because hurting another person, he just hated it. He hated the feeling that it gave him. And when he's talking to him, he's pretty much inventing breath at this point, the breath using, because he's like, you take a deep breath, and he can see like stuff about like their muscle contraction and the way that their skeletal like alignment is all messed up or set up, because he can see that kind of like almost X-ray like vision. He can pretty much see like the way that someone's body is underneath, so he can see like when their muscles are getting ready to move back, the way that they're set up. Probably could even see things like oh, this bone is weaker than the other. Maybe it's, maybe you have just one side that's not as strong. Like a character, maybe like one side of their body was their primary, where their muscles are a little bit stronger, and maybe their opposite side is a little bit hesitant because it's not trained there as much. Just that basic level of him, just how he sees the world because of this mark, ended up really just causing him to be such a natural like fighter, such a good swordsman from the start. But he didn't want to do it anymore because he doesn't want to hurt anybody. And it was because of this X-ray kind of like almost vision that really kind of gave him a lot of a weird outlook to see the world. And Kokushiba was just like kind of like blown away by it because he spent like his whole life, only 7 years at that point. Actually, I think it was 10 at that point, around that. But he spent years and years trying to hone himself in the way of the sword, and because of this, it's become a driving aspect of him. And even like with his level of effort and his level of training, like in comparison to his brother, like he's just moving at an like almost like he says pretty much a turtle's pace, which his brother just from the start was a prodigy because of the way that he looks at people, the way he can see things, and obviously the mark itself gives you like a straight physical boost as well. So he just, because of this aspect of how not really like what he had been trained on, what he had obtained, like what he had from the start, really just put him in this higher end spot of being a swordsman. But at one point, like it's, I think it says like years later, like getting close to like the 10th birthday, when he was going to get passed, sent to go live as a monk. Their mother died, and it's revealed when he's talking about like pretty much his life, and he's like, I'm gonna go be a monk, and I'm gonna bring this flute. He's talking about how much the flute meant to him because it was a gift that his older brother gave to him. He's very happy about it. And here Kokushiba is like confused, like why would he care about something and treat something like pretty much a treasure when it's just garbage? It's just something I made, probably not important. Probably him, the side that was very trained, very given things his life, doesn't understand like the much more sentimental value given to somebody by somebody he cares about. And then like when he ends up reading Yorichi's like journal, or like his diary, he learns that or his mother's diary, they he learns that his mother was sick. She was slowly starting to lose like mobility and strength in her left side. So that was the reason that whenever he saw his mother, that Yorichi would run to his side, run to her side, and he was pretty much helping her move around, prop her up, and help her get around. He wasn't just like some child that couldn't stay away from his mom. He was constantly trying to help her. He was always, he's just that guy who's just like I can see the problem, and I want to assist. I want to help her get around. I'm curious to know what their mother like thought, because like does she know, like did she ever find out like the fact he can like pretty much X-ray look at people, or did she just have like this weird feeling that her son knew of her case? Pretty sad stuff in that aspect. And even the fact that he knew, like, one of the reasons he stopped wanting to be a swordsman is he knew that his brother really wanted to be an amazing samurai. But if their father knew how much better of a swordsman Yoichi was from the start, then he could end up being reselected as the heir to the family, and it would be Kokushiba who would be sent away to be a monk instead of a samurai. So he abandoned that idea, like not only because he didn't like hitting people, but because he knew that it would hurt his brother's dream, and he knew that it would end up causing more problems than he wanted. He didn't want that, but he would be forced into it if his father ever found out. And here he is, like wanting, like he obviously cares a lot about his brother. If take a one small gift from him has been like his most prized possession for years. I'm actually really wondering what the will the flute end up holding like more significance later? Are we gonna see maybe like Kokushiba has it with him? Like, what if it's like used somehow as a weapon? Like maybe it ends up becoming like part of him. I don't know. I'm intrigued to know what that aspect is, because I feel like the flute is gonna have maybe some relevance later. Like, what if it becomes like a sword handle for some reason? Like Tanjiro, who's gotten like Tanjiro has a lot of like similarities to Yoichi in a lot of like his selflessness and a lot of the ways he's always trying to help other people, as well as just that kind of like natural like brotherly feeling that he has. And whereas Kokushibo was jealous of his brother, he's a bit hateful because of what he started out as and not what he was doing with it. Because even though he had this gift, it wasn't he didn't want to use it because he knew what it would do to his brother. Only he like knew like medicine stuff. He could have become an amazing doctor, some form of like masseuse, maybe like helped his brother even better. But and obviously, he was just a child. He was just trying to do what he thought was the best. And in this scenario, you just have Kokushibo who just grew jealous and he grew angry because his brother, who he had been hitting his whole life, and in reality had been doing things to help him, and had been looking to really just kind of do the best of what he thought would benefit his brother, and yet also help his mom. And now Kokushibo, who like his whole life really just seemed to like nothing I would imagine came really hard for him, and now he's facing like this hard truth about the person that he thought was kind of pitiful his whole life. But now, what will be the decision of like where does the story go with them with his brother? Because we know they obviously they became this user Sun Breath. Eventually, Kokushibo gained the Demon Slayer mark, but what is the story for what I'm interested? Like, what is the instance of him becoming a demon? What was the context of when he decided to go with Muzan? What was his brother's like reaction to it? What did he do for so many years? Well, was it 60 years between Muzan turning Kokushibo into a demon to Yorichi and him having that face off? And I'm legitimately wondering if the reason that Yorichi died after he made that first slash against Kokushibo isn't like, oh, I extended my life with willpower just to live to just day. I think it was more of like the act of hurting his own brother was so painful to him that he just couldn't do it again, and he just gave up life at that point. It was too much of a burden because he didn't want to. He gave up like his whole like dream of being a samurai like almost instantly when he felt what it was like to hit another person, and his brother, who he obviously cared a lot about. And even if the younger brother was more talented as a swordsman, he clearly had aspirations and looked up to his brother in his own. So all that coming down and around of having to hurt this person that he not only cares about as a colleague of the sword, a person to look up to, but his own brother, his own twin brother, probably just all around like tore his heart, and it was too much, or just too much of a strain on his being. The idea of doing it again, if hitting another person was so painful to him that he just abandoned his dream, like or cutting his brother was probably just literally heartbreaking to him. All around shot, it was such a stress, such a deep sadness. His body just probably couldn't deal with it. Couldn't deal with doing it again. The idea of it just completely destroyed his will to live. Other than that, I mean, tell me in the comment section below what you think, what you thought about this chapter. Again, I need Kokushibo to live. I need this guy to evolve and take Muzan's place as the final villain because he's more interesting in my opinion. I think he's got a lot more potential as an endgame bad guy than Muzan. Muzan is cool, but he doesn't have as many like kind of like parallels and ties that work well with Tanjiro as Muzan does. Tanjiro and Kokushibo, I think, just will make a really good endgame like hero and villain set. Other than that, comment below, tell me what you thought about this chapter. Thumbs up the video, from the like button and subscribe button, and check out my other videos. I appreciate everyone who's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.